Standard military strategy divides warfare into 5 distinct operational domains: land, sea, air, space, and cyberspace. Defense analysts evaluate that 5th domain through a unique lens. While land, sea, air, and space are understood as physical environments that are governed entirely by kinetic force, cyberspace is treated as a logical construct governed by human written code. This map illustrates a systemic-level analytical bias in modern defense policy. By isolating cyberspace into a purely logical category, strategic planners overlook the physical realities emerging within it. Major Jason Lowery, an astronautical engineer in the United States Space Force and a National Defense Fellow at MIT, identified the flaw in this framework. His research indicates that this systemic bias has caused the U.S. military to misclassify the most critical cyber defense weapon of the 21st century. For over a decade, institutions have evaluated Bitcoin deductively. By applying existing macroeconomic frameworks, they analyze it strictly as a peer-to-peer cash system. Lowery's MIT thesis, Softwar, presents a different conclusion. It identifies Bitcoin as an Electro-Cybersecurity technology. Reaching this conclusion required using a grounded theory methodology. This process requires researchers to discard pre-existing financial definitions and build a theoretical framework from raw observation. To understand the strategic value of this technology, we must rebuild our definition of power projection from the ground up, starting with biological physics and ending with digital warfare. Continuing to view this protocol through a financial lens leaves a massive vulnerability in national defense strategy. 4 billion years ago, early single-cell organisms established a proof-of-power protocol. They survived by rapidly forming physical barriers to shield their internal structures. In natural ecosystems, systemic order and the ownership of resources are always enforced by these physical constraints. Generating physical constraints requires constant energy expenditure, a metric that can be mathematically measured in watts. This dashboard displays the mathematical law governing biological conflict, the benefit-to-cost ratio of attack. It tracks the incentive to attack alongside a meter monitoring raw energy output in watts. Biological predators constantly calculate this ratio. As a target's energy expenditure surges, the physical cost of an assault increases, pushing the benefit-to-cost ratio into the red. This dynamic explains the primary visual motif of the Softwar thesis. Features like deer antlers or wolf fangs are biological mechanisms designed for continuous energy projection. Projecting this physical energy signals ownership and territorial boundaries without requiring constant lethal combat. This display of power stabilizes the ecosystem. It imposes a prohibitive physical cost on any animal considering an attack. Peace in nature is not achieved through mutual trust. It is achieved by making the physical cost of violence too expensive to attempt. Human societal evolution diverged from these natural physics. We developed the abstract power hierarchy, organizing our societies through laws, fiat currency, and titles. These human systems are unique because their foundation relies on mutual belief, rather than immutable physical laws. Abstract systems are efficient. They allow civilizations to scale and coordinate rapidly across vast distances. But they carry an engineering flaw. Abstract systems require central authorities to manage that trust, which creates an elite governing class. Historically, this elite class eventually exploits the trust-based system for self-interest, introducing systemic corruption that weakens the entire structure. Over the last 5,000 years, when abstract hierarchies collapse under this corruption, human societies experience a violent kinetic reset to redistribute physical power. In the nuclear age, reverting to physical warfare risks mutually assured destruction. Human civilization is currently trapped between the decay of abstract trust and the terminal danger of kinetic physical combat. We see this exact flaw replicated in the architecture of modern cyberspace. Standard software code is the latest digital iteration of an abstract power hierarchy. Traditional networks impose logical constraints. These rules are easily altered, bypassed, or manipulated by the administrators and digital elites who control the code. Lowery defines Bitcoin as a planetary-scale computer. This computer bypasses traditional data centers entirely. It utilizes the global electrical grid as its underlying motherboard. Proof-of-work functions as an engine that converts physical energy into digital defense. That raw physical energy is digitized and measured as bit power. When adversarial nodes attempt to breach the ledger, They don't encounter a logical rule they can rewrite. They hit a mathematically defined physical barrier enforced by Watts. Bitcoin is the first technology to successfully deploy a biological proof-of-power protocol within a non-physical domain. It solves the 5,000-year vulnerability of abstract human systems by embedding a trustless, physically constrained architecture into cyberspace. Major Lowery synthesizes these interdisciplinary principles into a single concept, software. Software is a form of non-kinetic warfare. It protects national data and infrastructure with the same physical rigor applied to financial ledgers. It operates by projecting massive physical energy costs onto adversaries attempting to act maliciously in cyberspace. It brings the biological benefit-to-cost ratio of attack onto the digital map grid. Unlike traditional kinetic warfare, which relies on physical destruction, software achieves strategic deterrence with zero casualties. This technology establishes a new global strategic equilibrium, mutually assured preservation. Superpowers finally have a mechanism to safely resolve strategic imbalances in the fifth domain, offering an exit ramp from the risk of nuclear escalation. History documents the consequences for empires that fail to recognize new domains of power projection. In 1453, Constantinople fell because its leaders ignored the physics of gunpowder and cannons, relying on outdated defensive walls. In the early 20th century, military leadership court-martialed General Billy Mitchell for predicting that air power would dictate modern warfare. The kinetic consequences of ignoring that strategic warning arrived violently at Pearl Harbor. By trapping Bitcoin in a macroeconomic framework, the United States risks repeating these historical failures. Policymakers must recognize, secure, and integrate proof-of-work mining infrastructure into core defense strategy. Cyberspace is the current battlefield, and electrical power is the ammunition. Adopting this framework is a requirement for long-term national survival.